Hello. Yeah, I'm just got out of work. I thought I'd drive around Auburn a bit. Talk about something, an event in my past. Nothing paranormal. Just for the sake of, I don't know, whatever. Setting it down. The event that led me to want to get out of the regular army and do something else with my life. I was active duty Army infantry, which really, and I was a training sergeant at that, training people to, for combat, to kill, which started to not resonate well with me. A little tour of the village here, of the city of Auburn. Right in front of us, this big yellow place, is the Seward House. And this is a guy that bought Alaska, Seward's Folly. He was Secretary of the State for Abraham Lincoln. And the house is supposedly haunted, I've heard. Kind of a historic little town, a bit, you might say. Auburn, New York. I'll get back to that event after I do a little bit of Tim Blab. I just got out of work. This is downtown Auburn, New York. It's where I work. And I live about 20 miles from here in the boondocks, which suits me fine, though I do like this town. There's the Seward House again. Canted, sorry for the angle. This is kind of awkward. All right. Yeah, a lot of nice old houses on this strip. The event that led me to decide to take a different course in life and become a doctor rather than a training sergeant that I was in the infantry, and I was a good one. And I thoroughly believed if I put my mind to it, I could become a medical doctor. I was very confident of that. I knew it would take a lot of hard work. But this is the event that led up to that. My daughter was with me, and we were up north. I had to take her to the hospital one night. She was sick. Obviously, nothing. She just was sick, and I had to take her to the ER. It, turned out to be nothing serious. I'm driving home, actually. Roundabout way. Well, it turned out, I spent quite a few hours in the hospital, and as she was being seen, there was a old man, I'd say, looked like he might have been 80, but he was he was in the hallway on a gurney, on a bed with wheels. And he was really thin, gray old man, very thin, wasn't talking, and he was all alone. And the nurses were talking where he could hear them. He was conscious, and where I could hear them. So it was me, him, and the nurses in that hallway at nighttime. And my daughter was, being seen by a doctor, and the nurses were talking about, they said he wasn't going to make it through the night. And I thought, wow, it's kind of cold that they would say that right in front of him. And one said, shouldn't we call somebody? And they're having this conversation right in front of him and me, which I really was kind of shocked that they would be that tactless, They said, well, shouldn't we call somebody. And the other one said, who? He doesn't have anybody. And she said, he's got a daughter down in Florida, and we're way up northern New York. Not New York City, but way upstate by Lake George. We're at Glens Falls, to be precise. That's way north of New York. And she said, I called his daughter, and she doesn't want anything to do with him. So there was nobody. And they said this in front of the guy, that he had nobody, and she called his daughter, who was down in Florida, and she didn't want anything to do with him. And then the nurses walked off and left the man alone there, laying on the bed for some reason, by himself, and me sitting there. And I thought it was awful. I felt sorry for him, that he was getting that kind of care, you know, that they could be that heartless to talk like that in front of the man who, according to them, and they were clear about it, and I asked him, and he had, I think he was stomach cancer, comes to mind, but I'm not sure. So I went up to the man, and he's just laying there, not talking. He could croak out a whisper. And I said, you're not alone, pal. I put my hand on his hand, and I said, you're not alone. I said, I'll stay here with you. And he opened his eyes and looked up at me, and he said, thank you, in a whisper, thank you. And I said, you're not alone. And I stayed there with him, and I don't remember, I think occasionally I talked to him, and you know, I put my hand on his shoulder and say, you're not alone, I'm still here. I'm still here. And I sat there with him for quite a while. I think they finally took him away to somewhere else. But I wasn't with him right up to when he died, but I was with him for quite a while that night. And I said some prayers. And that's about all I remember. But I remember that was it. That night, I decided that I wanted to help people. I wanted to do something to help people, rather than train people for combat. You know, training people to kill. And I understand we need soldiers, but at that point, I knew I wanted to help people. And I decided, I always kind of wanted to be a doctor. I decided to be a doctor. And that was the event that led to it. Look in there. Yeah, nobody. That's the event that led to that. So, you know, I got out of the active duty Army after 14 years, and finished up my 20 in the National Guard, New York Army National Guard, and went to college full-time, pre-med. And you know, I couldn't get into medical school. My math skills still are very, very poor. I just couldn't do the math. I couldn't get through the curriculum for pre-med, which called for upper level chemistry, upper level physics, and 2 upper level human genetics. And I found those topics interesting, but I couldn't do the math. So I had to salvage. After 2 years of, I had to salvage it, and I changed my course to become a high school teacher. And my deployment to the World Trade Center shot that down. Even though I finished the degree, I did complete my master's to teach. My military deployment to the World Trade Center on 9/11 shot that down. But that was it. I don't know why, for whatever. I just thought I'd share that little story. I have a soft spot in my heart for people who are lonely. And I could not believe that they were that callous, those two nurses, to just casually discuss that he had nobody, that he wasn't going to live through the night. They were guessing that, saying it right in front of him. And that the only one he had was his daughter in Florida, and she definitely wasn't interested in flying up to see him before he died. And then just walked off and left him for hours. That was it. I said, "You're not alone. You're not alone." And I said some prayers. And I actually put my hand on his hand, which is unlike me. I'm not a lovey-dovey kind of guy, but the man's dying. And it broke my heart what they said right in his presence. It was just awful. And he did look up at me. As I didn't know, maybe he didn't want to be bothered, but he looked up at me and we made eye contact and he said, "Thank you." You know, he just croaked, whispered it out. "Thank you." I'll tell you, we don't have to be a doctor to help people out. That much I learned. You know, you can go to any hospital and volunteer, and I should do that. I think I very well might, and volunteer, because there are a lot of people left there alone to die. A lot of people that could just use your company. So that's about it. That's all there is on that one. I'm leaving work. I actually enjoyed myself today at work. You know, and I said my prayers going to work this morning, and before I prayed, I put myself mentally and spiritually in the presence of the Lord, and then said my prayers and asked Him to go with me today. And pretty good day, all things considered. Helped a lot of people out. Day went pretty fast. Now I'm just headed home. Got to be back tomorrow morning, Sunday. I hate to say it. All right, yeah, I'm gonna go home, probably work on my music a little bit, do some housework. I don't know if I'm gonna post this or not. I don't really have. I'll post what I post. So it is what it is. Y'all take care and God bless.